Hi guys, this is Mrs. Pin with Mrs. Pin's Pinball Podcast. We're recording episode number 5 tonight, and I have to tell you that we've had like 14 different attempts because Dr. Pin's in the room with me tonight, and he keeps making me laugh, and I just can't. Like, I got to keep it together for this podcast that people actually listen to, and so I've told him that he's got to stop being so funny next to me here because he just keeps laughing at the things that I'm saying, and it's really not that funny, but he's literally shaking the bed. Anyways, whoa. So it has been a week for Mrs. Pin. I have to start by telling you guys a little bit of quick background. So Dr. Pin is a physician. So his schedule is crazy, as most physicians' schedules are. We have 2 little kids, and in a former life, I was a 3rd grade teacher. But now I stay at home with our kids and do all of the typical stay-at-home mom stuff. Laundry, cleaning, grocery shopping. It's super glam, let me tell you. So today I was actually at my mother-in-law's house. She just moved and I was helping her unpack. And I get a phone call in the middle of the day, kind of randomly and unexpectedly from Dr. Pin. And I'm like, oh, this is really weird. Why is Dr. Pin calling me? So I pick up the phone and he's like, Sarah, Mrs. Pin, Sarah. I'm like, what? What's going on? Oh, everything okay? Thinking like, oh my gosh, did he get in an accident? Did something happen at work? You know, crazy things happen in hospitals. He's like, Mrs. Pin, you are on the pinball profile right now. And I was like, okay. Like, this doesn't mean much to me. I'm like, what does that even mean, babe? I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, Jeff Teolis is interviewing the Pinball Princess on the Pinball Profile podcast, and they are talking about you. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. That's super, super exciting. And Dr. Pin is like losing his mind, so excited. And you guys have to keep in mind, as I'm telling you all of these stories, that I am a pinball layman. I don't know much about pinball. I am trying so hard to learn, and that's why we have the Pinball for Dummies segment each podcast, but I don't know who anybody is. I am not doing this to be disrespectful. I just don't know enough about the pinball world and community to get super excited when I hear that Jeff Teolis is talking about me on his podcast. Now I do. Now I am very excited that he was speaking about me on his podcast. But at the time, I was like, oh, okay, that's great, honey. That's super awesome. I'm unpacking your mom. Can we talk about it later? And so, I'm just trying to like get through the day. But Dr. Pin is constantly reminding me how amazing it is and how amazing the reception into this podcast community has been by all of you listeners. And so part of the pinball story today is going to be just to tell you about some of the amazing things that have happened and people that have reached out and given me their support. And I am so appreciative of it. So, the one day we're laying in bed and I get this random message on Facebook and I'm like, Dr. Pin, who the heck is Zach Meany? Who is this? And I'm like, this is such a random like message request. I have no idea who this is. And Dr. Pin is next to me and he like sits upright and he's like, what did you say? And I was like, yeah, I just got this random message from Zach Meany. And he's like, he is only the TWIPY host. And this is the TWIPY Awards are how kind of this whole entire podcast started. And so I immediately was like, what? Really? And he was like, yeah, he does the Straight Down the Middle podcast. I can't believe he sent you a message on Facebook. What does it say? Oh my goodness. So he's freaking out, so excited. And, Dr. Pin is like, idolizes all of these amazing pinball creators, manufacturers, these podcast providers. And I just kind of have no idea. I'm learning as I go along, fake it till you make it style. So I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And so, Zach is just like, I heard your podcast. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so flattered. I can't even believe that people actually are out there listening. I can't even get my 5-year-old to listen to me. And yet all of these strangers are listening to me. It's pretty crazy. So I got a message from him. And then just today, I Christian showed me his phone, and something must have popped up on his Facebook thing, and Stephen Bowden had put a link to my podcast on his profile, and he's like, "Oh my God, Stephen Bowden just gave you a shout out on Facebook," and I'm like, "Okay, who's Stephen Bowden?" He's like, "He's the guy. I met him at Pinball Gallery. We played Houdini together. It was so awesome. I was so excited about it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that guy, he's awesome." But like putting a face to the name and the story is, it's slow. It's slow for me. But so everybody has kind of reached out and given me their support and their appreciation. And it's been crazy, but awesome. And, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's listening and to all those people out there who care what I have to say, which is kind of amazing to me. So last podcast episode, I had discussed a few of the options that we've been throwing around for podcast segments. And one of them is called WOMP, Women of Motherfucking Pinball. And hopefully every time I do a WOMP segment, I'm going to find an amazing woman in the pinball community and just talk about her. And today, seeing as she gave me the most amazing shout out of life on the pinball profile, I'm going to be talking about the pinball princess herself, Stephanie Gaida. First of all, Stephanie, I have to thank you for all of your support. I freaking loved your messages. She told me that she was like grinning like a fool. And then I told her that I was grinning like a fool. And we realized that we were both from New York, and we had like this like moment, and it was awesome. And so I just wanted to say thank you again. And also to tell you that I saw your picture on Facebook. Somebody had tagged you in something, and you are the craziest ringer, a total doppelganger for our babysitter, who is like my favorite person ever. So I feel like this friendship is meant to be. It really is. I mean, we have so much in common, except for the fact that you know a lot about pinball and I know nothing about pinball. So anyways, Stephanie is an amazing pinball player. Dr. Pin has been telling me, giving you mad props and telling me how you go out there and you totally know your stuff, you know how to play, and you beat some of the guys, which is like always the best thing ever. And that you just go to all of these amazing festivals, you write for these pinball podcasts and come in as a guest speaker, and they ask you questions. And I just think it's awesome. I feel like there should be way more women involved in pinball. I think it's something that women can do as well as men, and that they can, hold on a minute, honey, mommy's podcasting. Sorry, guys, that was the princess strolling in here in her hot pink Trolls PJs, telling me that I needed to charge her iPad. That's really brings me back down to reality. Anyways, so our first WOMP edition, our first WOMP member, who I am super excited to induce in the WOMP Hall of Fame, is again Stephanie Gaida. And Stephanie, I've been reading about you online. I know that might seem a little bit stalkerish, but that's kind of the only way that I learn about pinball people. So sorry, not sorry. I think, I'm not sure. Anyways, so I've been reading that you go to all of these competitions and you kick ass and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff repair wise because you've been doing this with your dad for a while. So I feel like this is just the kind of thing that gives me more reason to spread the love of pinball around to families, because Stephanie is the perfect example of somebody who started doing this just like me because somebody else that she loved pinball. And here she is, and now she is writing for podcasts. She's on a lot of different interviews for podcasts, and she's going around to all of these competitions and pinball festivals and just like kicking ass and taking names. And it's like the most amazing thing ever. I'm totally in awe. So I am super proud, Stephanie Pinball Princess, to induct you into WOMP, Women of Motherfucking Pinball. And I just want to say, Dr. Pin was talking to me a little bit tonight about Pinburg, which is, again, we live in Pennsylvania. And so Pittsburgh is about, I don't know, maybe 3.5, 4 hour drive for us. So it's going to Pinburg is something that Dr. Pin has had on his wish list of things that he really wants to do. And we're trying to figure out how we can do it with our kids so that it would be fun for both of us. But one of the things he's told me about Pinball Princess is that podcasters, there is a special tournament for podcasters, and that it is called the Trash Talker International. And I just want to say that I would love for you to be my ringer. And I just want to talk for a hot second about the things I can really bring to the team, put on the table as a teammate. And here they are. So I can make us some seriously amazing team shirts. I mean, I can go any color. We could be color coded. You know how I am about those things. I have successfully nudged at least once in my lifetime. Like, I have seriously hip checked the machine and not tilted, which is what we're going to talk about in Pinball for Dummies later. I would be the number one cheerleader ever. I can make signs. I can bring cookies. I can swear like a sailor. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but I can keep it PG if we need, or if we need a little bit of that expletive enthusiasm, I am totally your girl. And if you could be my ringer, that would be great, because my rank in the pinball world is basically last. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a negative, I realize, but it could be super fun to watch me crash and burn. I mean, if I can't laugh at myself being so horrible at pinball, then I don't really know how I can laugh at other people, because I just don't think that's fair. So anyways, keep it in mind. You could be my ringer. I hear that you are like amazing at pinball, and we could be like team women, and it would be freaking amazing. So I'm just putting it on the table that we're going to try to go. And I'm probably going to be dragging my 5 and 7-year-old along, but that it would be super fun to be teammates. Okay, so now that we've gone through our WOMP induction, we're going to go on to the very quick segment Pinball for Dummies. So tonight we're going to be talking about two things that are really simple, but yet I still don't know what they are, and I'm trying to learn them. So forgive me if you are all of the people who know a lot more about pinball than I do. And for those of you who don't, keep listening, because I'm going to teach you something important, okay? So tonight we're going to be talking about what it means to tilt versus what it means to nudge. So sometimes when you are playing pinball, this really annoying thing happens where your ball drains down the side and you lose your ball, and it really stinks. It happens to me all the time. And it turns out that there's this thing that you can do, or there's actually many different things, but you can nudge the ball to try to save it from escaping the pinball playfield. And this is really cool. Basically, it is like an extra life in Mario Brothers. You nudge the ball away from the exit lane and you get to keep playing. It's super amazing. So there are lots of different ways that you can nudge the pinball machine, but you have to be super duper careful, because as I learned when I hip checked our machines for the very first time, you can nudge it a little too hard, and then something happens called a tilt. And a tilt is not a good thing. Basically, inside the pinball machine, any given pinball machine, there is a sensor, and if you move the machine itself too much, this sensor hits the side of kind of like an operation game type device, and when the two things connect, the game essentially freezes. So your ball drains, you lose your ball, you don't get any bonus points, and that ball of your game is over. So you have to be very careful, because all machines are a little bit different, and you kind of have to feel out the machine to really be able to tell what the settings are like. But because if you hit the machine too hard, you can slap the machine. That's a type of nudge where you kind of slap the side of the machine so that your ball pops back into the main area of the playfield. But you have to be really careful so that you nudge it just enough to save it, but that you don't end up tilting, because that is a fail. I do that a lot. It is really bad. I need some lessons. So that is our quickie segment on Pinball for Dummies tonight, tilt versus nudge. And I'm going to try really hard to tilt less and nudge more. And I just want to say thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.